as always, they'll be available. And special thanks to Anthony Lockman, who records the shows and puts them up on his YouTube channel on Top Rank Entertainment on YouTube. So all the evenings have been there up there if anybody wants to catch up to them. And thanks to Anthony as well. He provides a lot of photos and that for him as well from his Castleblaney days gone by Facebook page. So thanks to Anthony for that. So we'll open up there. We'll welcome Eamon in. Welcome, Eamon, and thanks very much for coming in with us. And just to start, congratulations, Eamon. As many will be aware, was inducted into the Monaghan GA Hall of Fame this year. So it's a great honour and achievement for Eamon and recognition for all he's given to Castleblaney Club and Monaghan County over the years. So congratulations on that, Eamon, and well deserved.
Thanks very much, and thanks for having me on here tonight, Stephen. It's easy to do something like this in the sense that we're in the middle of a lockdown. So I found it great the last few weeks listening to it and reliving old games and memories with the likes of Jerry Fitz and Lockie and Sully and Morley. So I'll be looking forward to next week's more so maybe than this week's.
Oh yeah, get it out of the way anyway. So I suppose, Eamon, as always, we'll start at the start and looking back at your underage record for Blaney, a phenomenal record, winning titles at under 13s, doubles at 14s and 15s and 16s, and right up into minors as well. So I suppose it was a very exciting time for you and a great period to be playing football in the 70s and winning with such a successful team.
Absolutely, there hadn't been that much success at juvenile level before 1973, I think it was, and we won the Kilpatrick Cup in 73, and then progressed on from there to win 14s, 15s, etc., as you said. And I was thinking there who was with us at that time, and I know there's a picture doing the rounds at the minute with Frank Marn and Jerry Wills into it, and I remember Frank in particular being instrumental in starting us off at juvenile level and giving us a great start in terms of coaching, etc., and getting us playing the type of football that Blaney played, because he would have played with the seniors and that. So it was somebody we looked up to at the time and really appreciate all of his efforts and others at the time, right up along until we ended up on the Liam McGrath senior level. But there was some great years in that. 1976, we won the under 16s, we won the minor league, we won the under 21 championship all the same year, and I was playing under 15 and under 14 and getting maybe tight enough to get me place on the 14, but by the time I got to 16 I was playing on under 21, so I must have had a growth spurt in the middle of that period of time. But I'll always remember winning that under 21 championship, because as a 15 going on 16-year-old playing in the middle of the field with Hughie Doherty and boys like that around you, Sammy McEneaney, they were the captain and vice captain, and then we beat Scotland in the final, and it was all down to Sammy's afterwards for a night, and sure, we were obviously too young to be taking any drink at the time, so it was exciting times. And then in 77 we won the minor championship, and we against the head, we weren't expected, but we beat a very fancied Monaghan Harp side in the final. And then in 1978 we would have been expected to win the minors, because we'd won everything all up through the years at that age level, and we won the minor league all right and the under 21 championship, but we didn't win the minor championship because Carrick would come up against a strong Carrick Corduff combination side, and they beat us in the final 6 to 12 points. I remember it too well, even still. Yeah. But no, it was a very, you kind of started to take for granted a bit, though. We just went out every year and we expected to win. That was it, and we normally did. But it helped us develop that attitude that I talked to you maybe before about that. we just didn't know how to lose a lot of the time. Or didn't know when we were beaten until actually it was over. So
Yeah.
that would have been. But as you say, very exciting times. To win that much so early was great.
Yeah, and I suppose you were reflecting the seniors at the time, because the seniors were on a successful run as well. So you were chomping at the bit to get up to playing with them, and it probably came early for you in that you were, I think, in you made your senior debut in '97, like when you were still playing minor, and you had another year minor after that, and you played an awful lot of football very quick.
Yeah, it's funny. I did start with the seniors in '76 after Blaney won the championship.
Yeah,
Mac Moore and a good few boys quit, and they were looking for to bring up a few players, and they brought us, myself and the two McCormicks, up to the seniors, and we were playing in their first league match against Ballybay in the field, and the match was abandoned. So that was my introduction to
was
senior
it
football.
was it the weather that had abandoned it, or was it?
No, there was
Oh,
there
it's
was
a bit
there was fellas getting to know
disagreement.
each other too well.
Right.
It was, but that was the very first game, and I thought this is some crack. The very first game was abandoned, and it was a thumping match. There's no other way of putting it. But then in '77, yeah, I made my debut in the senior championship, and again we just came up into an era then from '77 to what went on to probably '85 of a very strong Scotstown outfit, and they got to an All Ireland club final in 1980. But again, we were still tipping away, as I said, winning minors, under 21s and that, and maybe building for the future. But again, it was there was other little bits and pieces in there. Junior B, league win, um, things that sort of younger players, you got in there, you got the chance of playing it, helped to bring you on for senior level. So
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose the rules have changed now. You wouldn't be allowed to play as much football or as young as you were then, But at the time, it wasn't a problem. You were just delighted, I'd say, and happy playing football wherever it came.
absolutely, yeah. But I remember Jerry said it last week. That there was men playing with Blaney, and they would look after you. Coming in as a young fella, they would certainly sort anyone out that was out to do you or anything like that. And I I remember that clearly. The Brian Duffy in particular was. Maybe because he worked with my father, or whatever. He always used to look out for me, and we played in a skiing tournament around about that time, '77, I think it was, and there was a bit of a dust up, and I remember him sorting a fella out that was trying to sort me out. So
Yeah.
it was that. Blaney had those characters. They had great footballers. They also had fellas who could handle themselves, and um, it was. We weren't far away. Scotstown managed to take us. We got men sent off in '78 and '79. So playing for 45, 50 minutes with 14 men was difficult against a good team.
Mm.
So, but that it was '82 before we made the breakthrough at senior level, and that was to try and stop Scotstown winning 6 in a row. Ian McGrath gave a speech in the dressing room in Clontibbert that it still would get you going, just thinking of the words that he said, and that were we going to be the men that people would be pointing at go down the street. There's one of the fellas that let Scotstown win 6 in a row. So we went out and won that game, and it stopped the rot that year. We won the championship, but then Scotstown come back again the next few years after that. So
Yeah, you were saying in '83 that um you were beaten the first round in '83, so you took the opportunity. You headed to Chicago for a summer.
yeah, Monaghan were beaten in the first round, and Blaney were beaten in the first round, and it was just one of those things that sort of never happened, since that really. And
Yeah,
um, I did. I headed off to Chicago and had a great experience there, and played with St Brendan's, and we won the Chicago Championship, and then we won, and they also wore green and gold, coincidentally.
Right.
So
Yeah,
the
colours well.
yeah, well, I certainly had no problem playing in the colours,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we then played in Boston in the final and won the North American thing. But it was a great experience, and it was great to get away there. And there wasn't much happening in terms of football in Monaghan after that period of time, and from March, it was probably end of May, June to the end of September. And as things would have it, that year in the high school, there was an extension. It didn't open until the 19th of September, so I had a bit of an extended summer holiday that year.
no, you weren't too bad then. You could make the most out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and 84 moving in on into that. I suppose it was another. You didn't get over the line. Lost to Scottstown again in the semi-final in a tight game, but it was probably 86 then by the time for on the club front that really it was a big one on many fronts. But I suppose winning that championship again was as sweet as they come at the time.
Yeah, well, 85 was particularly tough for us because
Yeah,
I was captain of the team, and we had that incident that's well documented. I'm not going to talk about it here in terms of the Kilmacud thing, but
yeah,
I was captain of the playing team and had to stand on the sideline watching Scotstown playing us, and nearly, had an unbelievable game that day. I think he scored 5 points from play from centre half, and we still only lost by a couple of points. So very hard to take.
yeah,
We were in there with a great chance. I think it was Tony Lockman that was over the team, and he, we were ready to beat them and just didn't take them. But then when we got the chance in '86, we were able to take that opportunity and beat them and go on and win. And then there was, enough of us there who realised, what Scotland had done on the Ulster scene, and we felt that we were just ready and able to come at that stage and to do, what it took to win the Ulster, and we managed to get to the final. I'm just looking at all the notes you made here, Stephen. I couldn't even remember some of the stuff that you came up with, but we beat Kingscourt, and it was a great game over in Kingscourt. We beat Balahi in Balahi, and then we beat Bourne in Armagh. So we won all 3 matches away from home. Normally in an Ulster club you get at least 1 match at home, but
yeah,
the final in Bourne against Bourne in Armagh was played on. It was a shocking day for football. It was just gale force breeze across the pitch, which is the worst breeze nearly in some respects, because you nearly had to aim about 20 yards to the right of the post to get it to come in. And Gordon were All Ireland champions at the time, and in actual fact I think they won it again the year after, and we stopped their run for 3 in a row. But we're very unlucky down in the All Ireland semi-final. Like, we were 9 points down at half time against St Finbarrs from Cork, and we managed to get it back and led by a point and time up. And there was a guy called Mick Slocum playing left half back with St Finbarrs, and a ball broke about 40 yards from their goals, and all he was doing was pulling on it. He wasn't shooting, and the ball took off and sailed between the post. The referee blew it up on the kick out, and we had to go to Cork, and then we lost our replay in Cork by a point. So we were pretty close to being the best team in the country at that stage, and I think that we were just unlucky, just didn't have the luck with us.
yeah, and I suppose going back to what Jerry said last week, Jerry Fitch, he says that semi-final win up in Balahi was the best performance he ever seen from a Blaney team. I remember going up to it at the time, and highly kind of underdogs going into it, but just put in a powerhouse display to get the win and get over the line.
Yeah, it was a great win, and we played some great stuff. But there is a story about that day that wouldn't be widely known. But I think the statute of limitations has run out, so I can tell it now. But at half time we were coming off, and we hadn't played that great in the first half, and we'd made some stupid mistakes, and Nerdy was giving out. Not like him to give out, but he was giving out, and it ended up that I was telling him to stop, and me and him had a bit of a run in, in the dressing room, and we had to be separated. But whatever effect it had on the rest of the boys, we went out the second half and everybody played like hell. So won the match, and sure, like me and you to be great mates. Like it was water off a duck to us. But
Yeah.
at another stage, a few years later, we were in trouble, and Nudie says to me, "I think we should do that again." And we did, and it worked again. We only tried it twice.
Right. That was something different to try anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I suppose after '86, then you kind of settled a bit, and championships were coming a bit more regular and that going forward. Like, is it the bit between your teeth, and um, Ballybay kind of upset you in '87, but after that, then there was another one in '88.
Yeah, 88 when the championship again, and we had young lads coming into the team at that stage, new bloods, and it certainly made a difference. And we won that championship fairly comfortably, and possibly at that stage we should have pushed on maybe for another Ulster club, but it didn't happen. And
yeah, well, a late goal I think against Burren on Dunya's very
late
goal in the game.
It was a very strange situation that day, because I was after getting married, and I was on my honeymoon in Florida. Now right. that wedding was planned around football, so that football would be over. But little did we know that we were still going to be involved in Ulster Club or whatever at that stage, and we led. I think it was 1-9 to 1-7. Noel Shields off the field scored a point, and people thought that was it. It was an injury time, and you could see the people heading for the exits, to get away quick. And the ball was kicked out, knocked down to Shorty trainer, and he drop kicked it about 60 yards to a fella called Tom Fagan, who was playing full forward, and he turned and buried in the back of the net, and that was the final whistle, and we lost by a point. But again, Burren were, they were all Ireland champions still at that stage. They had won it again in '87. So, but we had them beaten, and probably should have had more between us and them. We were easily the better team on the day, but got hauled back with them because they were able to stick in the match. But again, in terms of what we got out of that was that we're thereabouts. We need to stick at it. So. The funny thing that in '89 we got caught again in the final by Scottstown, and 1990 then there was a strong resolve that we were going to come back again. Like, just a couple little things in football, can catch you out. And in 1990 then, when we came back and got to the final against Inniskeen, people's recollection of that is that we robbed Inniskeen, but the scoreline doesn't lie. 2-13 to 3-9. We came back. People felt that we robbed Inniskeen because they wanted Inniskeen to win, but that's not the way Blaney people felt about it. That we had come from 10 points down, with I think it was 20 minutes to go, and won the match. But again, it was one of those things that we firmly believed, and it was something that we had from an early age, that we were never beaten. It's never over till the final whistle is an old saying, but it is so true, and we would not give up, even if no matter how far we were behind, because there was always the opportunity of nabbing a goal or goal and a couple of points closes the gap very quickly. So we would have stuck at it and won that, and then again got caught in the Ulster Club. Should have won that first game. I think we lost to St. Gall's, who were a good side also at the time, and went on subsequently thereafter in a few years to win in All Ireland. But 91, we came back and won the championship again, and people felt that Stephen White left us during the year, and they thought that was Blaney's not going to win it. And Latin, I think, beat us in Clontibbert. They were getting a job thrown to their pitch at the time, and they played us at their home league game in Clontibbert and beat us. And people said, "Oh, that's that. Blaney's finished for the year, or whatever. They're gone." And Latin hadn't beaten us, I think, in my lifetime playing. So it was one of those games that people thought, oh, that's the end of them. But we pulled ourselves together, and Jerry Fitz and the boys who was with us made sure that we knuckled down and did what we had to do, and we won the championship fairly comfortably, and then went on and won the Ulster Club again, which was brilliant to win it, and to captain the winning Blaney team. I thought my days of captain Blaney to win something at senior level were gone because of what happened in '85. I was nearly afraid to take the job because to jinx the thing, but we beat the Rossa, and then we beat Kingscourt in the semi-final, which was a good game, and then we beat Killybags in the final. And Killybags were highly fancied at the time to win it, but that game in Oma was a good enough performance. I know we played better on other occasions, but it was good enough to win on the day. And again, Thomas Davis took us in the All-Ireland semi-final, and we got caught in traffic that day that had a major upset on the thing. We had to run down the street to get into the pitch to get togged out, and I know that certainly the first 10 minutes when Thomas Davis blitzed us, we hadn't even settled, so it was just one of those things that happened that you couldn't really do a whole pile about, but it wasn't helpful on the day, and we never really got closing the gap on them then.
Yeah, always at that day. Then I suppose it was around that time you got that influx of young players as well, that it was the changing of the guard to a certain extent coming in. It must have been great to see all them players coming through in the one batch of time, and they carried that belief as well that all the teams had at the time.
Yeah, well, I managed the under 12s in Blaney from 1982 to 1992, so a lot of those lads that had started off with me at that stage, they were coming in then to play, Lexa Morley and Eddie Murphy and Dermot Duffy and Ray McCardle, and they were all starting to make inroads into the senior team, and certainly they were a massive boost to us. They great footballers and great attitude and hungry to win, and should they never lost from under 12s to under 21. So that was particularly sweet for them, that to come into senior setup and win at senior level. It was your fairy tale club football thing, that they had won everything that could be won in the game in Monaghan by the time they were 21. So it was it was a high start for them, if you like.
Yeah, and it was around this time then too, I suppose it was 94, you actually stepped into it was a couple of years after 91, it didn't happen. Scottstown come back, obviously that final in 92 we know went to the 3 games, but like we talked to, I suppose Lockie, he says he never thought about managing, he was too busy playing, but you obviously had the background from being in the school and coaching with the under 12s and all that. So when you did step into the player manager role, was it something that you had to be persuaded to do, or was it something that you felt was going to happen, and you're only too willing to take it when it did come at that stage?
Yeah, well, I think that it was a case of that, as you say, I had not finished playing, but I was coming close to the end, 34, playing with injuries, needing painkillers to play. So I felt that, here was an opportunity. There was a great bunch of players, and, I had no problem managing, in the sense that it's something I like to do. But I thought maybe another year or two, but then a few people talked to me and said, look, this is the right time, and let's try and get these boys on through and develop them more. And once I suppose I made up my mind to do it, went ahead and did it, and the response that I got was tremendous from all the players. I was looking through a list there recently of the players and pick that I had at the time, and at my first training session in January of 1994, we had enough for 3 teams, and you'd be hard picked to pick one team out of them. And again, we got caught by Clontarf in the championship semi-final. Rory Moan come on as a 16-year-old and he kicked a couple of unbelievable scores, and we lost. But we went on to win the league that year, and it was myself and Nudie actually said after beating the champs, come on, let's go and win the league, because I hadn't got a league. I played for 20 almost since 1976 and I hadn't won a league, and it was really because Blaney didn't have much interest in it, but I felt it to be good for the players, and as it turned out, we won the league, and the first time since '74 they had won it, and that led on to a trip to the Canaries as a thank you for the boys, and also as a bonding trip. So
well,
I'm sure,
infamous trip.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. We will come back to that. We'll mention that. All right, there'll be a few guys starting to sweat now. I'm sure that's online. But I suppose you mentioned it there that you put an effort into winning the league, but also a big effort was put into actually winning league games, and it showed over the next few years that you were dominating the league and carrying that form into the championship, and it paid off. Like in the next 2 years, then 2 championships and 2 more leagues to win 2 doubles. Like so. It was probably a big focus for yourself to get that installed into these fellas, and that you also had more new players coming through.
Yeah, well, I certainly, you learn, you have to try and learn from what you picked up along the way, and one of the things I learned was that Scotstown was winning leagues year in, year out. People were afraid to play them because they kept getting beaten all the time. So from my point of view, I just figured that if we could establish that sort of superiority over our teams, keeping beating them home and away in the league, that they then had this sort of in the back of their mind that, oh, here's the Faughs, they're going to beat us again. And we went unbeaten in '95 and '96 league and championship, and that was good. And it was also, Scots and I suppose in my mind would always have been the team that was always capable of coming back and beating you. So I paid particular attention to all the games against them in league and championship, junior and senior. And from those 4 years, '94 to '97, we never lost a game to Scotstown in junior or senior. And it certainly gave our boys great belief.
Yeah, take beating them on a regular basis. And I suppose maybe the only one regret in that wee spell that you had, you just never couldn't get over the line in Ulster. A couple of great performances, particularly against Castlewellan and Carrickmore, but losing out the next day in a time when Ulster club football was fiercely competitive, and it was only getting more so.
Yeah, it was, and certainly the Mullabon game, was one that we felt we could win, but they were a good side. They had Kieran McEneaney and Neil Smith and guys like that certainly they knew how to play football, and Peter McDonald was over them, who was a very shrewd manager. And I suppose it's one of those things that you look back on. It's one of the games I look back on with regret, because I was managing. I was also fit to play. Actually, that year I was really pretty fit, and we were thereabouts to win the game. They played an extra centre half, which was a tactic that only emerged years later, as that once teams start to do it. So start a man corner forward and bring him back to play him centre half. So we got it very hard to break them down. They had this guy playing in front of Nudie, and the boys were getting it hard to get in to get scores. But one of the things that happened near the end of the game, I said to the boys, Neil Smith was having a good run at it in the middle of the field for them, and I said, maybe I should go in and mark him. I've marked him loads of times over the years, and the guys with me said, God, I don't know him, I don't know what, because I hadn't been playing much. And anyway, we lost the match, and the game wasn't over, I'd say 2 minutes, and Liam McGrath come down the side and he says, why didn't you go on to Neil Smith? And it was one of those, I never forgot it, because he taught me a lesson then that, I was only at the start of my managerial career. If you have a gut instinct, follow it, because it's usually the right one. And it was my gut instinct. And I wouldn't mind, I didn't have that thought of in any other game, even games that we lost. But just at that particular time, I thought, yeah, 10 or 12 minutes, I could do a job here. They managed to pull ahead of us during that period. But again, we could still have lost the game, but it was more, Liam Mack, he was the best manager I ever had. And I have massive respect for what he did for Blaney and for me as a person. And a lot of the things that I employed as a manager would have come from him.
Yeah, a picture up there of Liam, and obviously a massive influence on you in your playing days as a manager, and then, as you say, he was that shoulder as well for you when you did step into as a young kind of novice manager. Jerry Fitch, me and Jerry had worked it out as always a stats man. I'll leave it open for anybody in the comments, but if they can let us know their guess at how many finals Liam Mack managed Blaney in, and how many did he win. It's a phenomenal figure, and I'll come back to that near the end to give you the answer. You might know, Eamon, no?
I do. Well, I'd have an idea, but I'd have to start counting. I'd remember them by counting them, but I certainly not off the top of my head. I know that I played in 16, so
yeah,
he wasn't involved. He wasn't involved in all of those 16 county finals, but
yeah, and you weren't involved in the 60s either.
No, correct. Yeah, or early 70s either.
Yeah.
I'm not that old yet, so.
Yeah, and I suppose too, you'd great the Junior McManus as well, the chairman, and that in around that time was another great man to lean on at the time.
Junior was a very good friend of mine, as well as Everton Lord of Mersham, but we had great crack, and obviously in juniors after the game, and the game would be played again, and then people would give out to you when they got enough drink into them, and there'd be that sort of stuff going on. But he just he loved the Faughs, and he put a huge effort into it, and he was chairman when we won the Ulster Club in 1986. And I always remember it was an awful time of the year, and they're deciding what to get for us for the final. And we got these tracksuits. They were Adidas tracksuits. They actually came back out again there last year, the retro ones.
Right.
And it was an Irish tracksuit, because we were basically same colours, so they were really ahead of their time, if you like. But because the game was played in Armagh, and Armagh's dressing rooms and that whole area, they were building that Canaries thing that they have. It was closed, so we had a change in a club up the road. So normally when you'd run out onto a pitch, you'd run out and you'd be togged out and all the rest. But we togged out and we put on the tracksuits and ran down the hill. And I'll never forget the Blaney people cheering when they saw us coming, because it was a different sight, and it was one of those things. But I always remember Junior being very proud of what we achieved, and he was a Blaney man through and through, it was I was delighted for him that he was chairman when we won that.
Yeah, very good. And I suppose we better get to it now. Put the boys out of the misery. This trip to the Canaries, but I know before that you went to Donegal. That was probably more civil, a bit more training done. But looking back, was the trip to Canaries, was it a brave move, or was it one that turned out to be a kind of a bit of a very rewarding one, in that you come back with a very solid team, with a very good bond?
Well, I think so. I think that that was the idea of it, to do something different and to give the boys a taste of what other successful teams and clubs were doing at the time. And when we took on with doing it, there were members of the committee going, but by the time we were going, there was none of the committee going. So it ended up that you were in the Canaries with a group of young fellas, and Nudie was the oldest that was there, and he was still
the hardest handle.
He was still a relatively young fella too, and But I'll always remember that trip for a lot of different reasons. Some of the stories I couldn't tell, but some of the stories I can. There was I remember being wakened at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was this. I says, "What is that noise that I can hear?" And I went out onto the balcony. And I could hear this group of fellas singing "Plastic Jesus," and I said, "God, that sounds like somebody I know." I'll not mention his name here tonight, but there was. It was an inquest into stuff then had to happen a few days later, and there was nowhere in the hotel where we could gather the boys. So we went down the road a wee bit. There was an outdoor amphitheatre type thing. So the boys were all up in the stage area, and we were talking to them. And Nudie had sort of established himself as my right hand man, if you like, as the giver outer as well. So we were giving out and saying to the boys, "Look, you have to sort yourselves out here." And the next thing was Bugsy, and I know he's listening. He started to laugh, and Nudie says, "What the hell are you laughing at?" And then I spotted that there's a couple of the rest of the boys laughing, and then one of them pointed, and behind us there was about 30 or 40 people had stopped. They thought there was a show on. So it was that type of thing. But the overall thing of it was great crack, and the boys had a hell of a time, and really enjoyed themselves. And they realised what we had put into it to get them there, and certainly it was it definitely was a great bonding thing for them. A lot of the guys we didn't put them with their mates. We split them up, older and younger, and got them to mix through other. And I think that was a big help to them bonding, because some of them would to come out in the tug out and it'd nearly be just talking to the same fellas all the time. So when we come back, we won every match for 2 years bar in the Ulster Club, and I think that was a testament to the lads as well. They realised what they had got out of it, and I think they gave everything then.
Very good. And I suppose moving on from then, it was inevitable that you were going to move into, I suppose, management at inter-county level at that stage. But just before we go into your managerial, like a phenomenal record for Monaghan as well, playing career from the very early, like into the panel in '79 with a McKenna Cup, and a kind of the glorious '80s, as they were saying. It was a good time to be playing for Monaghan.
Oh, absolutely. But as I said I think I was saying to you when I was talking to you, like it was, I always look back and think how lucky I was to be born in Blaney, because, number one, I got, playing with a brilliant club, and, we had the most county titles in Ireland for a long time, and that you earned, your respect as well, because, playing with Blaney, everybody, there was never any trouble getting challenge games, etc. So then in '79, when Monaghan won the Ulster Championship, I just coming off the county minor team. We had played in the Ulster minor final in 1978, and I had played at the opening of the Carmarthen Field actually in 1978, in August or September of '78. I always remember because I was marking a fellow called Colin McEneaney from Down. Monaghan played Down in it, and he was one of the guys that I, 7 or 8 years earlier would have been running around, pretending I was Colin McEneaney. So I think I did the same that day. All I did was run around after him. But that was in '79. It was brilliant to be in there, and won a McKenna Cup, okay, and then won the Ulster as well. And Monaghan hadn't won for 41 years, so the guy was just 18 at the time, so it was a massive thing, like that you were coming into a successful setup. And then we won the McKenna Cup again in 1980 and won the Under 21 Ulster Championship for the first time. It was Monaghan's first time ever won it in 1981, and then going on from that, we were building, we were starting, you could feel the thing coming. There was some of the guys there in '79 had were kind of older and had gone off the scene, and but guys like Ray McCarn and that were coming, and Bernie Murray and guys like that, they were coming off starting to come off minor teams, etc., and starting to add to the pool of players that we had, and Lockie, etc., then started to come in. So in terms of what we won in '83, we managed to win the Division 3 and then get up to Division 2, and we played Meath in a quarter final of the National League, and sort of starting to build the things. And then '84 getting to the Centenary Cup, so it was an unbelievable experience for Monaghan people and for players, because we played in Croke Park 3 Sundays in a row, which was unheard of at the time. You didn't have as many games, and I remember we lost in the final to Meath by 2 points, but we beat Derry in extra time in the semi-final and Offaly in the quarter-final, and Offaly had been All-Ireland champions a couple of years before that, and we beat Mayo in Mayo, and that, like, the Mayo, I always remember the Mayo supporters booing the Mayo team off the field, because like nearly disgraced to be beaten by Monaghan in Mayo at the time on their home patch. So no, but that sort of led on to '85, when we were getting stronger, and we knew we were getting stronger, and winning the league was massive that year, because Monaghan's first national title. It was against Armagh. It was one of those things that you'll always savour, and to be one of the moments where when Jane Cherry lifted the cup, you never forget. And then there was your own teammates there, with you like Declan Flanagan and Lockie and Nudie, and like Lockie was very unlucky, broke his leg in the semi-final against Tyrone in Croke Park, and but winning that then led on into the championship, and we won the championship, and that was sort of led into the All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry, which everybody kind of knows what happened. We brought them to a replay and didn't beat them then, but we knew we weren't that far away. And again, little things make the difference. We played Kerry in the opening of the Lights in Blaney. I think it must have been the end of April, and Kerry came up because Tony Knockman was very friendly with Mick O'Dwyer, and he managed to get them up, and it was pitched as the National League champions against the current All-Ireland champions. And it was a cracking match, and there was a huge crowd at it, and we won the match. And those we had beaten before that, but that was the first win in sort of something where it was a bit competitive. And so when it came to the All-Ireland semi-final, I genuinely think that it was the first time we played them that we weren't really afraid of them anymore, that fear had gone. So
and I suppose just taking you to that, Eamon, on a national stage, it really kind of showed the arrival of Monaghan, but in particular for yourself, and just taking you back to that free kick, like off the ground, 55 metres, although I'm sure in a few years we'll get it out to 60 or 65 metres, and when anybody does it nowadays, it's a big thing and nobody else can do it, but like a pressure kick, last kick of the game in All-Ireland semi-final, have you ever taken yourself back to that moment of what was going through your head, or was it just, I need to do this?
I think that if you went back maybe 10 or 15 minutes before that, the previous 10 or 15 minutes, I had 2 or 3 kicks before that, not the same distance, mind you, but to bring it back level, and I managed to do it, and it was another one, if you know what I mean. So, and in the back of your mind, you felt like you had Kerry. Like at half time, we were in 1-5 to 1-1 up, and the goal they got was a pure fluke. John O'Donoghue, I think it was, but he took a shot, and it was going over the top of the post, and it hit the top of the post and dropped straight down. It didn't go, like if you tried to do it 1,000 times, it never happened, but it hit the top of the post and dropped straight down, and Gerard Power got it and he buried it. So at half time, it was 1-5 to 1-1, and in actual fact, I think Mick O'Dowd had a poked ball broke inside their square, and he poked a shot, and Charlie Nelligan saved and went out for a 45. And it could have been 2-5 to a point at half time. We were that good in that first half. And, they were just close enough and closed us down then and kind of took over. But at that moment in time, I didn't stop and think, oh, what happens if I miss this? I was thinking, can I score this and can we get a winner? That was the thought process. So I think it was momentum. You were in the swing of the thing, and if you had thought about it too long, you definitely miss it. Do you know what I mean? It's like a 3-foot putt. It's like a 3-foot putt if you stand over too long. So it was one of those ones you just hit, and I couldn't have hit it any better. I hit it very as well as I could, and it was into a breeze as well, which I thought I didn't have the distance, so I was actually not forcing it. I was making sure I got it on target, and if it dropped short, maybe Murphy get his fist to it or something like that. So
yeah, and that took us in, and like the hype blew up. Then I remember, like you can see, I have some pictures up there of the crowd at the drawn match, and I think it was nearly a full house the next day. Like Monaghan just to come home from everywhere to get to this semi-final replay. That Kerry were there for the taking, but it was just a game you just never got the momentum in that year.
no, but it was one of those games that they scored 2 goals and 4 points in the first 12-13 minutes, and they blitzed us. And I would say that was because Nick O'Dwyer said to them, look, these boys are after being told for the last fortnight they missed the boat. You go out here and take advantage of that and try and put them on the back foot from the word go. And we never really got going that first 10 or 12 minutes, but then the bomber got sent off, and we worked our way back into it, got it back to 2-4 to 5 points at half time. And I felt in that game, Stephen, and I did look back at it since that and the thing that people forget is we missed an awful lot of chances because we were going for goals. If we had to do what Offaly did in 82, or even what Blaney did when they were 9 or 10 points down, take our points. We could have won the game. Like they ended up winning 2-9 to 10 points, 11 scores to 10, and one of the points they got was in the last couple of minutes. So there wasn't much in it, and I felt that because we were, I can remember still 3 shots that we had for goals that we had to tip them over, so there was nothing in it then. And that was just 3 that I can remember off the top of my head. But people look back and say, oh, Kerry brushed them aside. The first 10 minutes they did, but they scored 2-4 in the first 10 minutes. So for the next 60 minutes, they only managed to get 5 points. So it wasn't like that they ran away with it, that we just didn't. We weren't composed enough and kept tipping away. And that's the one thing that Liam used to hammer home to us: take your points and the goals will come. It's cliche, but it's so true,
Yeah, and just a comment for you there from Tom Miller. He says the 1985 league final was good, but he reckons the 1986 one was better. That's from Tom Miller, good Laois man.
Yeah, I understand why he did. And he should be thankful that us poor Monaghan folk took pity on Laois and let them win their first title since 1927.
Oh, there's the stats now, Tom.
So it was. Look, that was one game that we threw away against Laois, and it was. I unfortunately I was injured at the time. Didn't come on till 10 minutes to go or whatever. But it again, we felt that that I think if we had to win that league, we'd have done better in the '86 championship, because it just didn't happen for us on the day. But we're not taking away from Laois. They won it anyway. That's it.
They enjoyed it. I suppose too, just staying in that, you talked about the influence of Liam Mack at you at club level. You're the county manager at the time too. I know you'd Tony in that very successfully with you for under 21s, and then Sean McCaig with the seniors, and like for such fierce club rivalry at the time, he fairly gelled that Monaghan team and that panel at the time, and he must have been a big influence on your managerial style as well in later years.
Yeah, well, Sean was he's very inspirational in the way he spoke and the way he motivated these teams, and he believed in direct football. It was get the ball into the full forward line and let's make something happen in there. And uncompromising type of style. And certainly he was what Monaghan needed in 1979. Like, people forget, in 1979, Sean McKeag was only 34. He was very, very young, and he had that air about him. There was a bit of fear factor in the boys. You daren't do anything, and there was. I'll tell you a funny story. I think I told it to you the other day. I mightn't use the same language in it, but I used to take Bubbles down to the training. Bubbles that used to play in goals. He played in the centenary final with us, and Bubbles wasn't too fond of the training now. I think anybody knows him knew that he wouldn't kill himself running. Goalkeepers anyway, by and large, don't like to do that. So I called for him, and it was an awful night. It was wind, howling, and rain. And I says, "Come on, get your bag. Are you ready to go?" He says, "No, I'm not going." And I said, "Why are you not going?" He says, "I'm just not going." I said, "What'll I tell him?" Oh, he says, "Tell him F him." And I said, "What?" He says, "Tell him F him." I said, "I can't tell him that." He says, "Well, tell him whatever you like." So I went down to training, and I was hoping McKeag wouldn't notice that Bubble wasn't there, but he collared me at the end of the training session. He noticed we were training in St. McCartan's at the time, and he says, "Where was Bubbles tonight?" And I said, "Well, he didn't come down with me." And he says, "Well, what did he tell you to tell me?" And I thought for a second or two, am I going to say this to this man? He says, "What did he say?" And I says, "He said F him." And he says, "What?" And I thought I could see the smoke coming out. Just he was ready to explode. Instead of that, he threw his head back and laughed. He says, "Oh, that's typical Bubbles." He says, "He'll pay for that."
Yeah.
So
he knew who he was dealing with.
yeah, but he was very influential, Sean. In terms of he knew what to say and when to say it, and he didn't suffer fools lightly. There was no messing about. You wouldn't get away with anything with Sean.
Yeah, very good. And as well as playing for Monaghan, you played with Ulster in Railway Cup games and that. And then there was a famous game, I remember from being in the boys' school at the time, that you played actually against Australia in the compromise rules down in Armagh. And the reason I remember it is because we thought these Aussie guys were coming over and they were just laying into each other in Crow Park. And we thought maybe we might get Thursday off too if Eamon doesn't make it back from this match. So we might, and I'd say it was just an experience and a different kind of experience playing against Australia.
Yeah, it was unusual. There was different kind of rules, and they were massive. I never like the size of them. Like, there was a couple of guys that were 6'7", 6'8", 6'5", 6'6". Like, we were very small, but it was played on a shocking day down in Armagh, and ash and rain, and I don't think that they really fancied they were up for the fight. They were more thinking in terms of playing Ireland the following weekend, and we gave them an awful thrill and altogether. But again, there were certainly a few clothesliners that day that we dished it out as in fairness to McEneaney, he knew what he was at, and he picked the right clients for that particular game in terms of a mixture of scorers and a mixture of fellas that could mix it with the Australians.
Meet the challenge. There's Declan Lockman just put a comment in there. Just going back to Sean McKeag, I rang McKeag once to say I wouldn't make training. He said, "See you later," and hung up.
That's right. I remember. I remember Lockie telling me that.
I'm surprised that Declan missing training. That's a new one.
Well, it wouldn't be like Declan to miss training at all. But I remember Declan saying to me, "What am I going to do?" And I said, "Well, you're going to have to go to training."
That was it. I suppose then moving on, then you've moved into the hot seat now in Monaghan. How did you find that a step up from going from a club manager into a county manager role at the time? Like, this was back in the late '90s, so like it was obviously a big change and different setup and different way of operating.
Yeah, it was like what I lad tried to introduce in Blaney was a professional attitude, and we upped the training regime and brought in a lot of things that we felt. But again, at county level, you had to match what was trying to go was happening at the time. The difficulty was that we just maybe didn't have the player base that you would have had maybe 10 years before that, and but the players that were there did exceptionally well. We had some great games, like in Tommy Carr's first game in charge of Dublin. We went to Parnell Park and we beat them 2-12 to 12 points. It was a hell of a performance by the lads, and we were in the group of death in the National League that year. And when I say the group of death, it was Dublin and Tyrone, and we were the top two went to Division 1, the next two went to Division 2, the next two went to Division 3, and the last two went to Division 4. So we were the candidate to go to Division 4, but we ended up finishing second and going to Division 1. So it was a hell of an achievement by the lads, and we went to Pro Park and beat Down in the quarter final of the National League. This is the real National League, not the Division 2 or 3 or 4 or anything else. It was the full thing, and then Derry beat us in the semi-final and they went on and won it, and that was Anthony Total and all those guys that were still there from the All-Ireland winning team of 1993, and again, it was a great experience for the lads. I remember in 1998, we won the B championship. Actually, it was I think in 1998. And my theory on these things is a bit like winning the league with Blaney, that you have to win the small things before you win the big things. Especially if teams are trying to build a bit of confidence. So, remember we beat Fermanagh in Scotstown, and Peter Quinn presented the cup to Eddie Murphy through gritted teeth because he couldn't stand to hand the trophy over. He thought he was going to be, as he was the president at the time, he thought he was going to be presenting the cup to a Fermanagh man, which would have been a proud moment for him, but says that he was presenting it to a Blaney man. Yeah. So, and then 1999, we came up against Fermanagh. We were beaten by Fermanagh. I remember Rory Gallagher had on one of those days that only he could have. He was outstanding. He scored 3-6 or something, and he was unmarkable on the day. But we didn't have good runs in the championship over the 3 years. No point in saying we did, and that was a disappointing outcome to it. But the silver lining was winning the Monaghan's second under-21 championship in 1999, and the Blaney man kicked the winning point here in Derby, and that was down in Oma as well. So Oma's always been good to me when I was a manager or playing. I always felt that. So
yeah, that was a great. You had a few Blaney boys on that under-21 team, and just he timed it well there. Mick Gorn, Mick that's living in Blaney now, he was on the Donegal team that year, and he just after joining us there. So we're still not sorry, but you lost that one, Mick. So we are. But
yeah, no, it was good, and like again, we come up against a very strong Westmeath outfit in the semi-final to beat us in Croke Park, and went on to beat Kerry in the final. Yeah, they won the All Ireland. Yeah, they had won the minor in '97 or '96 or something like that, and then come back again then to win the under-21s in 1989.
I remember that game in Croke Park, and Micey playing and his Monaghan socks was falling down, and the Blaney socks were coming over the top of the Monaghan socks. He always wore his Blaney socks under his Monaghan socks. So he did.
Yeah, Micey was a great general, as I would put it, on the ball. He wasn't blessed with pace. Now he'd tell you that himself, but he could get stuck in and win the ball and spray it around. So yeah.
There's a message from George over in America, George Duffy. Well, Mr. McEneaney, it's great listening to you, but I have to leave now. My son's birthday party is getting started. It was a pleasure to play with you and a pleasure to be taught by you. As we won our first medals with you, Doyle Cup and McGinn Cup. Thanks for everything. So good man, George. Enjoy the party.
Yeah, George had some great days too. As Jerry Fitz pointed that out last week, and he was hard to handle in school. I just if you hope he's listening to that. He's not gone yet. He was hard to handle, but me and him always get on well. So
yeah, very good, very good. And I suppose after Monaghan, then you stayed about managing, but you come back to Monaghan later down the line for a second spell in 2011. And I suppose, firstly, had you noticed a big change then in the resources and the setup and everything that went into club or county football at that time? And like, it's a changed game again, but had you noticed the big step up, the big difference? I know you had been with Louth in between, but from a Monaghan point of view?
Yeah, well, I suppose it did sort of crop up, during my Louth stint from 2006 to 2009, that, you had an awful lot of more things coming in. Like, for instance, when I went into Louth, all of the video analysis it was gone up a step, and we were using a program called Dartfish at the time, and we, like the guy that was doing it for me, Richie Ford, between us we worked out what we could do with this package, because they were using this at Man United and Liverpool and these places, and some of the Gaelic football managers and that were using it to shorten a game, just show you a shortened version of the game. But what we would do is we'd put all the kickouts in sequence, so we could say, right, show me all the goalkeeper's kickouts. Show me, so if there were so many kickouts, we knew where they went. We knew, and we do that on the opposition as well. So to give you an indicator of where the majority of their kickouts went, or if they had a go-to kickout, etc. So that was just one of the little things, little changes. But then, obviously, from a strength and conditioning point of view, that had come into the game, like Armagh and Tyrone and these teams had sort of upped the game on that, and everybody was changing it. There was various theories over what exactly teams should be doing. Should it be gym work, or should it be more, to strengthen the bodies without making them bulk up? And you had different attitudes towards that, but it meant that your personnel, the amount of people that you had out there, had to greatly increase, and we felt that we had to try and get as good as we could for what the budget was in Monaghan at the time. That was really the thing in 2011 when I come in. I was coming in on the back of Banty, and it was, as people said to me at the time, a poison chalice. That that he had 7 years and people were used to the system, etc. And a lot of the players had battled long and hard, and there was a lot of them carrying a lot of injuries. They had to be fixed up, and that was, I suppose, nothing only that they had gone on so long, and guys like Owen Lennon had to get an ankle operation, and Conor McManus, we ended up sending Conor to a guy in Nottingham in England to get his hip sorted, and he was the only fella in Ireland or England that could do this at the time. And since that, there's a guy in Waterford, Bamford, that does them, but he did that. He got that sorted, but it meant that for those couple of years you were without major players. Tommy Freeman was injured for a large part of it, and there was you just didn't get a run at it. But in terms of building, I think that we did achieve that over the couple of years, that we brought in a lot of young players, and the likes of the Kieran Duffys and Colin Walshes, and these guys come through, and I had Dermot Malone and Fintan Kelly and these guys with the 21s at the time, lads with great attitude, and that were going to give it their all to try and make it at senior level. Carl O'Connell came in, so we helped put the building blocks there for the subsequent success in 2013. But there's no point in me saying it otherwise. It was a very tough couple of years, the toughest of my managerial career, and I wouldn't like to have to do it again, because I don't think we got the rub of the green, and we put a huge amount of work into it. I had Colin O'Hare he was working with Leinster Rugby at the time, professional outfit, and brought a lot of new structures in. And again, we tried to do as much as we could. Alan Borden, the Irish soccer team, you'll see him on the telly if anybody is watching that tonight. He came down and talked. He'd be a friend of mine, and he came down and he talked to the boys about different things and regard their health and fitness and that. And so we tried to put, that was something that from 1999 to 2011 there was so many more angles to be covered, and you also then had the whole thing of trying to keep the boys, that they had jobs or etc., and you had people trying to look after that as well.
Yeah, big changes in that. And I suppose just unlucky that game. Dick Clarkin had a piece recently and in the Gaelic Life, and he mentioned that down game where our own Kieran Hanratty made the impact that it was as good as performance he seen from a Monaghan team, but just fell apart at the end and didn't just get over the line and left it behind. That might have changed the outlook on it.
Yeah, again, we had them. We certainly had them on the rack, and the first half of football that day was as good as I saw Monaghan playing either nearly before or subsequent. The second half, we didn't do what we'd been doing in the first half, and obviously Down improved, but we took pot shots in the second half, and instead of walking it to the right position and taking your shot like we had been doing in the first, and we threw the game away. There's no other way of putting it, but that would have taken us through to an Ulster final, and I think but the boys knew from that they were good enough. They knew from that particular, that all they needed to do was to try and replicate that. And obviously Malachy then brought a defensive element to the game that, you'd have to say that, I was looking at it and thinking, if we had to maybe do that in the second half and get their 10 or 11, 12 men behind the ball, it might have we might have held the lead and hit them on the break. But it's always easy being wise in hindsight,
Yeah. And I suppose just another point on from someone that's managed clubs over the years with different teams and in different counties and counties. Has the gap probably grown now between your club player and your county player in terms of what they do and their attitude and everything like that compared to maybe your days playing?
Yeah, probably in terms of the preparation, etc. Although, we did what we felt was right at the time and what we were guided to do. I think that in all of these aspects, the guidance comes from the top, and we did what we felt was necessary at the time to play. But on the club thing, I think I said this to you, Stephen, I had all my own set of rules when it came to managing clubs, and I never managed anyone in Monaghan except Blaney. I wouldn't manage in Monaghan, and I had plenty of offers over the years, but it was a golden rule of mine. I wouldn't manage in Monaghan against Blaney. So that was something that I felt was the right thing to do at the time. And again, in terms of managing in other counties, it was a great insight, and I wanted to see what these counties were like. You often heard of Meath and the Meath men, and it was good manly football, and but totally devoid of tactics. You could definitely say that there was more tactics in Monaghan than there was in Meath, and there was more tactics in Ulster football than there was in Meath. But really good footballers, strong men, and I really enjoyed my time there with Kilmaine and Wood, and subsequently then with Trim, and I think we won a few leagues and a few bits and pieces. But again, as time was going by, you could see that more had to be done, and then you had to start introducing programs, and places that you'd go down. Like when I went to Mayo Ridge in 2010, they had their own gym, they had a hall, they had such a fabulous setup, for people doing the work in the winter time, and they had their training programs, and they were always almost modelled nearly on what a county team had been maybe just only a couple of years earlier, and statistics, etc., and taking videos of games and all of that kind of thing that has come into the club end. So the club players, I would say, in a lot of cases, are putting in nearly the same effort as the county players, and that's a lot different than when we were playing. And I'd have to say, I think we had more crack. That's the truth. I think that we enjoyed our football more, and if you played a game and the boys wanted to go for a few beers afterwards and talk about the game and socialise, that you could do that. Nowadays they can just jump in the car and go home, and they mightn't see each other for another until the next training session, and you don't get talking out stuff, or you don't get. I think you need that, especially when it's an amateur game. I think you need to have something that's an outlet that for enjoying it. And I'm not advocating drinking. I'm just saying that they could go out and have a chat or socialise together or do things together.
Yeah, very good. I think it's probably one of the things that Monaghan were good at in recent years, that there did seem to be that kind of bond between the boys, and there was a bit of a social element to it, on and off the field and so on, and it stood to them. I've just a couple of questions for you just come in there. Again, this is from Declan. Do you think there is an overemphasis on the stats analysis and the things in the game now, or is it a must, or a case of everyone's doing it, so everybody needs to be doing it as well?
I think there's a lot of people out there doing stuff, and they're doing it for the sake of doing it. But if you're like, I think one of the big things in the game that has come in, that Dublin brought it in, and that is that you make every shot count. So what they looked at was what was their percentage of shot to score ratio. So say if they have, just to keep it simple, if they had 10 shots, how many did they score? And what they found was that in an awful lot of teams, they were scoring 4, maybe 5. So they said, if we can get it up to 6, we'll win most games, or 7, we'll definitely win games. And that's their percentage. That's why they work it around. People say, oh, they always take the right shot from the right position. It's a case of they have that. There's nobody taking a pot shot. There's not a fella tearing up the wing, and when he gets 35 yards and the goal's away out on the right hand side, he has a go, and everyone goes, oh, and it's just wide. They make sure that it goes between the posts. If you're after walking it up that far, they walk it around until they get somebody into the best position. And I think that's what, those are the statistics that count. And if you see that, it's the same people that are kicking it wide from the same positions, and, that's not inside the scoring zone. Stuff like that, I think. Or if it's a case that your team is giving away more scoreable frees than anybody else, then you have to look at your defensive work and see how you can make sure that they defend better and that they will not give away as many. You set them a target, etc. But I think that there is a place for most things in the game. I think there's certainly video analysis, but the days of sitting down and putting fellas down to watch a match, like, that's totally waste of their time. They're turned off after 5 minutes. You have to have it specific to them now, and I think Monaghan have, from what I know, have probably got that right, in that they can package it up and send it to them, and they can look at it in their own time, and then, okay, what do you think of that? How can you do that better? Like, that's what I think should be happening in terms of statistics, and that I think that there's other people's there, and they have statistics for the sake of it, and they can, how does it relate to the game? That's the important thing. And you see guys going out there and they put out 40 million cones out in the field, and the fellas running all sorts of directions, and you say, right, where is he going to do that in the game? How does that relate to the game? And that's, I suppose, my advice to any coaches nowadays would be to make it game specific. Whatever training you're doing, make it game specific. Have it that is applicable to a game situation. And that'd be, I think that some of the stuff, like people building themselves up too muscly as well, they're not lean enough. You certainly need, if you're sitting at a desk all day at a computer, you need to do something to change what you're doing. If you're I know from all the teams I've had that I never had to worry about the bricklayers or the carpenters or those sort of guys. They didn't need to do weights or that. Were already, they had the physical strength. They nearly needed a rest in the evening instead of going to a training and running around the pitch 40 times. So.
Very good. All rings a bell. And another question there. I'll come back to that question now. But I suppose just on when we're on management, your adopted club up there in St Geraldines and the Leinster Intermediate Championship with them must have been a highlight, after your Blaney days and so on, and particularly with Jim involved.
Yeah, well, I suppose even when I came to live up here, I was still going down to Blaney to do the juveniles, and then when my own kids came along, I figured that they were up here, and I did my best to get them to go Blaney wise, but they're from here, and they wanted to play with the Geraldines, and I said, right, then I'll give them a hand out, and I started to take the juveniles there in 1999, and I worked away with them every year up to 2013 until I took over the senior team and won the intermediate championship in Louth, and then were lucky enough to go on and win the Leinster, and that was a great experience, to win that with another club, and certainly with your own lads involved. So it was it'd be one of those memorable moments to see your own lad picking up a Leinster Championship Cup, and beating the Dublin team in the final was sweet as well.
Yeah, and I suppose too, just have another question there for you. Is there more to come in the managerial roles? Are you looking ahead to getting back in on the sideline, or are them days behind you?
I suppose you never say never, but I'd be thinking more towards the latter, that those days are kind of behind me. I've been managing teams since 1981, since I went to the boys' school, and I think I did 25 years in a row at senior level. It takes its toll on you, and I figure, and I just 1981 to now is 40 years, and I'm in the boys' school now 40 years, but I can tell you on this show, because I haven't said it at school and that I'm retiring this year in the boys' school. So I was made permanent there on the 1st of October, so I'm finishing on the 1st of October this year, and I will be sad to go because it's been a long and happy career in there, and certainly we had some wonderful days with the football, apart from anything else, and the great staff that I have there. But it was a labour of love at the football, because you had a lot of I was doing it in the school, then I was taking the juveniles, so I found that easy to do. But we had, I think, one of the biggest achievements. We won 9 McGinn Cups in a row. That's the county schools championship, and I don't think it'll be done again, or don't think anybody do it again. But that was a proud moment to do something like that. And the mini sevens, the amount of competitions that we won, we're currently, I think, hurling and football champions at mini seven, because we haven't been able to do it for the last couple of years. So but all of those things give me a great kick out, to be honest. I love to see the kids out playing and winning. And then, like it's October 2019 was the last schools championship, and we beat Monaghan in the final up in a scheme, and it was a hell of a feeling winning that day. And Mark Hannerty, was again coaching the lads that day, and it was great to get that win. But what I stuck in my mind that day was all the parents that were there from Blaney, that were all sort of either people I had taught, or from football families. A lot of them were, and the kick that they all got out of it. And I think that's something that I've always had that love of football from the point of view of being able to pass something on to kids and seeing them having the joy of winning and even the joy of just playing. But being out there and playing with their friends, I think is what they love the most at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose on behalf of everyone, we'd all wish you very well in retirement when it does come about. And I'm sure we'll get to mark the occasion properly in October time when it comes about. And hopefully COVID will be a thing of the past at that stage or close to it, and we'll properly mark the occasion. But like the boys' school, I suppose from when I started in it, you had just joined as a teacher. It's a completely different school, and it's growing and growing the whole time, and the achievements and everything like that over the years have been phenomenal. So on behalf of everyone, thanks very much, and I'm glad to hear that you have taken a lot of pleasure from it over the years as well, and still have that enthusiasm for the guys, like up until that 2019 win as well in the McGinn Cup.
Yeah, but no, thanks for that, Stephen. Look at it. It's killing us at the minute not to have Hardy Cup and Lunchtime League and all of that stuff going on. Like, it's legendary stuff around Blaney, and all the kids love it, and they, even if some of them are not that interested in football, they actually do like playing in that because it's a bit of fun, and it's a host very competitive, and certainly it was always great to have the Faughs there to support you and to give you the facilities and to give you whatever support you needed, and having coaches coming in like Marty McElroy, and that I think is invaluable to the club in the long run.
Yeah, it absolutely is. There's a message from Bugsy. Welcome to my world, Eamon. The old pension is great. you and Bugsy can go fishing now when you're in retirement.
Yeah. If that's what he likes, fishing, I'll be going, because there's no way, no chance.
In the lake in no time.
Absolutely, it'd be something if we get into the lake, and it wouldn't be me.
A message too. I have a couple of questions there, just from Duxley in Dublin, just following on from George's earlier point. Thanks for Everton, Eamon. Best coach I ever played under. Always ahead of your time. You sad to see you leaving the boys' school. The work done you with the school and promoting Gaelic games stood to the town and club. Best of luck in retirement. So thanks for that, Faughs.
Thanks, Faughs.
Yeah. I'm just going to come on to a few general questions at the end now, Eamon, if that's all right. Put you on the spot a bit. There's one there just from Paddy Conlon. He says, of all the Faughs championship winning teams, is there a player that springs to mind that was underrated on that team? Or any of them teams? Somebody maybe that went under the radar as such.
Underrated players, God, there was very few underrated players in Blaney in terms of, I heard guys, Lucky mentioning Emmy Brennan, like certainly I think outside of Blaney, Emmy was underrated, but we always had serious time for Blaney. I think that Phil the Gunner for me was one of the guys that people didn't realise exactly how much he did. Like, if I played in the middle of the field with Phil the Gunner, I knew I was going to have a handy day, because I'd be going up for the ball and I'd hear this behind me, and I'd know that somebody was after getting taken out of it or taken out of the way, and he could catch a ball with anybody, and after he discovered he couldn't kick it, he would end up fisting it off to other guys who he never waste a ball, and he was, I say, outside of Blaney, I'd say he was definitely underrated, because he could do a hell of a lot of damage around the middle of the field, catching ball, breaking ball, breaking up the play, and I certainly would have thought he was, but there were so many good players around Blaney. You had asked me about it's another question you have for me in relation to players, but talking about Blaney players, and who was, you mentioned a few of them there, Duxie, and played, like, Eamon McEneaney was one of the best man markers I ever saw in the game, and anyone that had him on him, even at training, hated it. He would stick with you, and you had guys like Pat McEneaney. Like, Pat was a unbelievably talented footballer. Like he could have played soccer with professional soccer teams, no problem. And again, Desi Mulligan and guys like that, very influential. Johnny Hannerty, and that's not even getting into all the good players. Like I was running through them: Mark O'Connor, Sid Conley, Brendan O'Duffy, Derek Sullivan, Noel Shields, Brian Cunningham, Bubbles, Graham McCardle, guys that were all there and who give massive effort to the thing when they were there. And then the guys that I played with, like Declan Flanagan, Declan Lockman, Eddie Murphy, Dermot Duffy, Dermot McCardle, Aidan Tavy, Eamon Tavy, Phil the Gunner, as you said, Fran McMahon, who was a good friend of mine and played with us for a few years, Anthony McCardle, Jerry Fitz, Peter Duffy, Barney McDonald, Stephen White, and then the greatest footballer of them all that we had was Nudie, and I would stand by that nearly in relation to nearly anywhere. But that's only a few. I've had 100 players written down there. I couldn't call them all out as being, players that of talent and commitment and who added a lot to the cause when they were there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I learned very quickly not to be asking people to name their best players they played with in Blaney, because it's an endless list, and rightly so when you look over the years. A couple of just Morley message there to echo Everton Duxie says, "We Ray says similar." This from We Ray. Eamon was a great manager and pioneer in management. His job as senior manager of Blaney was so successful because of the work he'd done with the juvenile in the preceding year. So thanks, Eamon, for all you've done for the club as player and manager. I have a question here too from Niall. Great coach and person for the under 12s and 13s at our time, best time. But he wonders where that amazing boy school jersey came from, the black and red.
It actually, the black and red came from where we were looking at the colours that was around the town in terms of the school. Like there was we wanted to have a unique colour in the boys' school when we introduced the uniform in 1988. That was the first year of uniform. I became principal in September '87, and the other schools were going with uniforms. We were following suit, and we wanted something that was different. We didn't want the other colours that was in the other schools, so we ended up then with black and red, and then the green and gold that's in it in the jersey is obviously the Faughs. So we did then have a jersey for a few years of green and gold as well. So we kind of mixed between the two. But then the current jersey comes from a design that we got O'Neill's to do to try and blend in the green and gold in along with the red and black.
Very good. And just the last few, if anybody else has any questions, fire them in now. We'll do our best to get to them. I suppose one we ask most people is the most memorable moment, if there's one or two that stands out over the years.
Well, I suppose the memorable moments would have to be along the lines of your wins, when you win something. And I'd figure that winning the Ulster Club with Blaney in 1991 and being captain, memories of that. I actually have a picture of it, and my wife, long-suffering wife, would put up with me going to all these games and playing football and managing teams. Anne Marie, she is in the picture as well, and it's a memorable moment for me because it was a culmination. I thought I'd never see that day again, and that we'd win an Ulster Club, and certainly that to get the opportunity to captain a very good team, was one of the things that give me great pleasure. Winning the Ulster Club in '86, I'll never forget that day, and I think those are memorable moments. The National League 1985, I remember being on the steps in Croke Park and thinking, God, is this real? That we've won a national title in Croke Park, and we're going up the steps like you'd watch so many teams when you were growing up, going up the steps to collect the trophy. And Uh, the other ones, I suppose, from personal point of view, seeing the Geraldines winning the Leinster in 2013, and Jim was captain at the time and had collecting the cup. That's a great memory as well. But I could name 30 or 40 more that I had great fun. You know, at the time of winning stuff or of doing things or that. But those few stick out in my mind. Winning the championship the first time in '82. But I give one that sticks in my mind, and I suppose it's not a memorable moment, but it's one of those surprising ones that when we won the Ulster Championship with Monaghan for the first time in 1979. Sure, we could hardly get round the county. It was 11:30 at night, and we were coming into Monaghan. We were thinking all the people will have gone home, so they won't have waited till now. And we were coming in the road from Scotchtown, and the lights of the bus were shining. When you were coming to Scotchtown, there was a hill sort of on the right hand side, and just this is in total darkness with the lights come on, and you see, a couple of hundred people with flags and standing there at 11:30 at night, and it sticks in your mind. It's one of those things that sticks in your mind, a memorable moment, if you like.
Very good. It shows that football, especially in these times, it means a lot to people. And I suppose too, just there on Loud, the appointment of Mickey Hart, I suppose it came as a surprise to everybody and created a bit of a buzz around Loud football again.
It did, yeah, but I suppose that, with the way things have gone with COVID, there has been nothing realised. There hasn't been much of a chance for them to train or meet, get together or play a challenge match or anything. So I think that it came and there was a buzz, and then it died again, and it'll only start again when something happens and when we see how they go. But they're in Division 4. There is probably only one way they can go, and it would be, I say, a major disappointment for Mickey himself and for the team, and that if they don't get up to Division 3 and Division 2 in successive years. I think that'd be seen as being realistic, and that they'd be hoping that that's what they could do. But again, it's the current situation is not leading itself to anything. I think at the minute there's probably a bigger buzz about them building their county grounds, and this draw for a house that's coming up, and I know that Blaney is having their own one, a draw for a car, and that's the people are trying to get together to do that. That'll be a great thing, I think, for the Faughs as well. That second pitch at the back of, or the other pitch at the back of the first one.
No, absolutely, and badly needed. Just then, we have a couple of more questions there. Just one, I suppose, your toughest opponent. You've played for Monaghan and that, and County Ulster and colleges. You were saying. Played in a Dublin County final as well that maybe not too many would know about. So you've probably come up against a lot of serious players over the years.
Yeah, look at it. As I said to you before, I think I was very lucky to play at a good time, and to, that time that we played in the Dublin Senior Championship final. I remember I was training with them and training with Blaney at the same time, and then we got to the county final, and the Civil Service beat us in the final in Dublin, but I played on Brian Mullins in the semi-final and the quarter-final, because we beat UCD in the semi-final. We beat St Vincent's in the quarter-final, and Brian was a tough opponent. Now there's no two ways about it. But in terms of the hardest guy to play on was Jack O'Shea. Like, Jacko was the Rolls Royce. I couldn't handle him at all. That's telling you the God's truth. And he was, in terms of tough opponent, I couldn't play him. I felt on everyone else I could do something, or you get, break some sort of even in the contest. But with him, no, if McKeag took me off him, I was absolutely thankful that he did. And I didn't play him that often, but the few times I did, I thought no. And the toughest opponent was probably Harry Keegan from Roscommon. He was like a block. If he hit you, I caught the ball one day in Monaghan, and I turned it, just a turning at my shoulder. The ball popped away up in the air, and I got it hard to get my breath, but I wasn't breathing right for a good 6 months. Whatever way he caught me, but he was also very strong and hard in the tackle, and he was just a good marker as well, and a decent footballer. So those two would be, I'd say they'd be the two hardest and toughest opponents to play against.
Yeah, very good. A message here from Tom Galanders. Thanks again, lads. Really enjoyed that. Eamon was always someone I looked up to. No jokes, please. Like everybody, I remember him from many outstanding moments for club and county during his playing career. But more than anything else, his encouragement to younger players, regardless coming into the senior panel at training and matches, made a huge difference. Thanks and best of luck in your retirement.
Well, thanks, Tom. And Tom was instrumental in our win in 1990. There's no dear doubt about that. The job he did playing on Gerard High was second to none. He really did a job on Gerard that day in terms of sticking tight and limiting Gerard's influence on the game. So, but again, a wholehearted player Tom was.
Yeah. And just that other message, I thought it was actually from Duxie, but it was actually from Mousy now. I just see the actual email address, the development manager at Monaghan. Haven't taught children, this is from Mousy, haven't taught children for 40 years and coached for a similar length of time. What advice would you give to juvenile coaches?
And to juvenile coaches, I would say to them all to make the thing enjoyable for them. That's you have to consider when you're designing the training sessions. Are they going to enjoy this, or is it the most expedient thing that you're doing? Like, the days of picking two teams and throwing the ball in is gone, because that there was no where's the coaching in that. If you're going to do that, then you have to coach through the game and stop the game and try and point out to them if they tried something else that it might be better. But my advice to all the coaches is that when you don't just turn up with the session and try and organise it, then have it planned out, try and make it as enjoyable as possible. Don't try and do too much at the one time. Focus on getting something that they're going to go away with and that they're going to enjoy and that they'll want to come back the next day. That'd be my advice to them, that and to make sure that they have a plan. That the old saying about failing to plan to fail. So you need to just make sure that you have it planned out, that you know what you're doing, and don't cancel the stuff on them. There's nothing worse than kids, if they're having a training session and that they haven't got it planned out,
Very good. I think we can all take that on board. Just a couple of messages for you here as well before we're nearly there, I think. From Paddy Condon, wish yourself and family all the best in your retirement. Nothing but glorious memories of the boys' school. Huge legacy left, and rest well earned. Enjoy. And then from Caroline McNamara, well done, Eamon. Great interview. You and Anne-Marie and the lads enjoy your retirement. And final question from Morley. He says, if you're not going to go fishing with Bugsy, are you going to play more golf now?
Absolutely. That's the plan. Down, play up here in Dundalk or play around Concrete, and it's killing me at the minute that we can't get out, but it's good exercise, a good laugh, and you get playing, and you'd have to come back to the football again when the amount of guys that I played football with and that you play and that you have crack and that you meet up with and have fun. You're talking about memorable moments. We had a number of years ago we nearly organised the Monaghan golf team to play in this All Ireland thing. It was held in Spain, in just outside of Marbella, and we were playing. It was held outside of Murcia. It was in a place called Mar Menor, and the winners got 25,000 to go to the charity of their choice. And Nudi's mother was in St Mary's at the time, and Nudi, the pressure was on straight away. We had to win this money for St Mary's, because St Mary's badly needed the money or whatever. And as it turned out, we did win it, and took the money back to Nudi, handed over a cheque, I think, to St Mary's for it. So I always remember thinking, it was a really memorable moment, but it was more relief for the three of us that was with him, that we wouldn't have to listen to him giving out that we didn't win.
Yeah, nearly competitive to the last, but always for a good heart. And I suppose
Absolutely.
just on that, I had a note of it here. We seen an interview with Nudie in the Irish Examiner yesterday, and just about his own battle and that at the minute. And we wish Nudie, of course, the very best in that. And it being the Irish Cancer Society's weekend, and I know it'll be close to your heart as well, Liam, and that we support their fundraising over the weekend and in their daffodil appeal that they can't do it to the same level with COVID and that. So it's a very worthy cause, and particularly with Nudie and that behind it, and support the Castleblaney branch of the Castleblaney Cancer Society, and all dig deep where we can over the weekend and support them.
Yeah, no, I definitely would support that. In terms of, I think nearly every family has been, mostly every family has had, the taste of cancer in their mouth, if you like, in terms of not being going untouched by it. And I think that's something that everybody gives a little, it can support a lot. And I know with them not being able to get out and do the daffodil days, and that I know the Grand Blaney that would have been well supported in that, and it's something that I think we all could maybe just put our mind to it. I know we have the thoughts around COVID, etc. at the minute, but I think knowing Nerdy, etc., and other people that are going through their difficulties, I've a couple of mates going through it, and all of these treatments need money to do it. So please support it if you can, folks. It makes a difference.
Yeah. And just a message from Duxie there, echo everything that's been said, and particularly wishes you well in your retirement. And just before we go, a couple of thank yous. Thank you to Philip. I came out to the field this evening and was dreading it with the weather it was, but he'd the heating all on for me out here. So fair play to you, Philip. Thanks to Bob as well. I had issues last week with my internet and that, but he put me on the right road this week. And as well as that, Eamon mentioned it there, the car draw. So asking everybody to keep pushing it, spread the word, sell tickets, buy tickets, whatever it is, just to get money into the coffers for the new field out here. And the website is www.winanewcar.ie, and keep an eye on social media for the promos and the promotions that we're doing now. Couple of messages just from Rambo Tavi, wishing you all the best in your retirement. And thanks for everything over the years. Best dead ball free taker of that era, and best of health. Few other good messages there as well. Grania Miller's asking you if you're not retired from the managerial career, that the Blaney ladies are always on the lookout for managers. She must be giving Tom the boot, so she is, but she's looking to shaft him and put a new man in, just like that. And just to I suppose wrap up, once again, thanks a million to our guests and Eamon in particular. That was a brilliant. We've actually been on 1 hour 45 minutes, thoroughly enjoyable, flew by, and on behalf of everybody, thanks very much for everything, Eamon, and for tonight in particular.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Thank you.
Yeah, so no bother, folks. Thanks very much for that. I will hopefully have something else lined up over the next week or so, but thanks everybody for tuning in, and it should be online in the next day or so if you keep an eye out on Anthony Lockman's Top Rank Entertainment page. So thanks very much, everybody, and keep safe in these times. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.